Welcome back to our channel, where we bring you some of the most fascinating and gripping content from around the world. Today, we're diving into the world of true crime and taking a look at some of the most extreme reactions from convicts who receive a life sentence. You won't believe the emotions that come pouring out when these inmates hear the verdict. From disbelief to anger, sadness to acceptance, we've got it all. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and prepare to be amazed as we take you on a journey through the most intense moments in the courtroom. Number 1. Ellis Ortiz Nieves, Kent County man. Ellis Ortiz Nieves described Kent County Circuit Court Judge Mark Trusock as a monster and evil. He said what Ellis did was disgusting and sickening, and when you learn what he did, you might very well agree. Ellis was sentenced to mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole for beating a 4-year-old child to death. Deputies were called to a home where Ellis was left to care for many children under the age of 11, including the deceased 4-year-old boy Giovanni Mejias. The deputies found Giovanni actively dying on the kitchen floor. In a later autopsy after his death, revealed an abdominal tear that caused internal bleeding. He also had injuries on his head, buttocks, ribs, and lower back. Ellis went through the court process to have his convictions overturned, which involved hearing about what he did to Giovanni. He reacted badly when the judge started describing Giovanni's injuries before his death and said, "I'm not gonna sit here and let you say crazy shit about me, man." He struggled with deputies and had to be removed from the courtroom before returning around 10 minutes later. Yeah, I suppose that's a pretty normal reaction for not only life in prison for felony murder, but an extra 80 to 150 years for first-degree child abuse. Number 2. James Herard. When James Herard was sentenced to die for ordering the death of a restaurant worker, Eric Sean Pierre, in 2008, all he could do was smirk, make faces, lean back in his chair, and shake his head. Meanwhile, his mother would sit in a corner seat, leaning on a wall for support and remain silent. Wild tears welled up in her eyes, as shocking as it would be for most people to hear that they're being sentenced to death. It didn't mean anything to James, who was already serving multiple life sentences for 4 incidents that he was involved in as the leader of a gang called Backstreet Crips. James played a part in several robberies at Dunkin' Donuts stores, one of which resulted in the death of a customer who he shot in the back to warn other customers. He also became involved in a confrontation with rival gang the Bloods, which ended with him shooting a rival gang member. Fortunately, he survived and James was convicted of attempted murder. Just a month later, Eric Jean-Pierre is walking home from a bus stop when he was selected at random as James is next. James and other gang members were involved in a body count contest, and James ordered fellow gang member Therad Bell to shoot. Eric James said Therad would not have done it if he didn't provoke him, so he said he took full credit and blame for the shooting. Number 3. Anthony Rodriguez. Anthony Rodriguez, who had just turned 18, was on parole when he robbed, kidnapped, and sexually assaulted a 25-year-old woman in Martin Luther King Jr. Park, dragging her 105 feet into the bathroom. Anthony had previous arrests for violence, but this appeared to be his first sexual assault. According to reports, Anthony had been quiet throughout the entire ordeal, but that soon changed. When the judge sentenced him to 25 years to life, he started directly talking to the judge with tears in his eyes, yelled profanities, and called the ruling unfair. He had to be forced to sit down. Anthony clearly wasn't happy with the outcome of the trial, and neither was his family. Afterward, his mother said that he didn't deserve life in prison, and that something was wrong for him to receive such a heavy sentence. Anthony wasn't the first person to be arrested for the same crime. Previously, Mike Zarate Acobo was under arrest on suspicion of rape and stayed at a downtown jail for 35, until DNA evidence cleared him, instead linked 18-year-old Anthony Rodriguez to the crime. Number 4. Diana Lovejoy. Divorce can be hard on any couple, whether it's amicable or completely one-sided. Sometimes money has to change hands and children are often involved. Sure, it's hard, but is it worth trying to end your significant other's life? Diana Lovejoy may no longer have thought so when she was officially convicted of being involved in a botched murder for hire plot targeting her husband. This is how this convict reacted after hearing the sentence. When the verdict was read out, people in the courtroom gasped as Diana passed out and fell. The judge, Sim Vonkovsky, ordered the courtroom to be cleared so she could receive medical attention. Diana was subsequently wheeled out of the courtroom on a gurney, and a paramedic told newspapers that she appeared to have been overcome by shock. I guess you can't really blame her for that. The guilty verdict would see her faced with a prison sentence of 25 years to life, while our firearms instructor, Weldon McDavid Jr., who pulled the trigger, faced a penalty of up to 50 years to life. So what led Diana to make this drastic decision to hire somebody to try and kill her husband? A jury of 4 women said that Diana didn't want to share custody of their young son or give him $120,000 that formed part of their divorce agreement. Like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 5. Lindria Morris and Shirley Morris. When a child sneaks a cupcake from the kitchen, you might tell them off, or spoil their dinner, or simply tell them they're cheeky and not to do it again. In 2017, 3-year-old Keen Mason did this one innocent thing, and he paid with his life. After taking the cupcake, Shirley Morris, the sister of his appointed guardian, Lindria Morris, beat him with a baseball bat. Lindria then allegedly spanked him. The attack left bruises all over his body, and Keen died. The Fulton County Medical Examiner's Office said he had died of blunt force trauma with bruises on his legs, back, chest, buttocks, arm, and head. Shirley Morris will now spend the rest of her life in prison. After pleading guilty to murder 2, felony murder counts, aggravated assault, cruelty to children in the 1st degree, and cruelty to children in the 3rd degree, these charges would have been challenging to come to terms with. But it was actually the grandmother who had the most powerful reaction to this awful tragedy. Keen's grandmother was present at the bond hearing where she objected to the bond being lowered from $200,000. She struggled through tears when she said, "I have 5 grandbabies. I had 6. It is unfair." He was 3 years old. What can a baby do? 3 years old to make you beat him to death. Number 6. Ryan Stone. When some criminals look back on all the pain and suffering they caused in the immediate aftermath of an incident, they can sometimes feel remorse. They might say things just quickly got out of control and that they felt bad for any injuries and pain that they may have caused. But when Ryan Stone was caught after a 90-minute high-speed chase in 2014, that resulted in 18 charges and one man's life being completely changed, his reaction was quite surprising. He decided to mock the victims of his crimes. While Ryan's family said he was actually a compassionate person and just struggled with drug addiction and was troubled, authorities were able to show Ryan in another light after stealing an SUV, carrying a 4-year-old boy from a gas station, and traveling at excessive speeds. He bragged about making international news and belittled his victims. Ryan also hit Trooper Bellman at 90 miles an hour, shattering his leg while he was trying to deploy spikes to slow Ryan. To that, Ryan said that the trooper shouldn't have been standing in the middle of the highway. As troubled as Ryan might be, that reaction was surprising to most people. For attempted manslaughter, 1st-degree assault, and child abuse. Among over a dozen other charges, Ryan was sentenced to 160 years in prison. He would be eligible for parole after 75 years at age 105. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more. We'll see you in the next one.